Sure, let's restart that conversation.
Okay, we'll restart it after we do this intro. This is going to be so hard for me to edit.
Start, come on.
Welcome to Brotherhood, a spoiler-filled podcast where we review each episode of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. My name is Dylan MacArthur, the older brother.
And my name is Timothy MacArthur, the taller brother.
And my name is Hannah MacArthur, the lovable but disturbed sister.
What? We've got a sister. You didn't know that, but now she's on the show. Today's episode, Inside the Belly.
Turns out hell really is other people.
In honor of bringing our beloved sister onto this show, or perhaps an act of retribution for not having added her sooner, our sister has come on with many, many notes regarding the entire previous 23 episodes that we have already reviewed. So we're just going to take it from the top. What's the first thing that you wanted to say, Hannah, now that you're on?
Okay, well, since I first watched the show when I was kind of an emotional brick...
We're going to leave it up to the audience to guess who we have decided that Hannah is. She's not a character that has appeared in the show yet, but we have already decided as a group that she is very much this character.
Can I just say, Al is adorable.
Adorable?
Yes, he's adorable.
I disown both of you. Why? Why do you think that he is adorable? Explain this to us.
Well, the way he acts is kind of... I mean, he looks out for his brother, and he sounds like he's really young, and he acts like he's really worried about other people.
He's got this great falsetto voice that imbues every line he delivers with such sincerity and innocent honesty.
Yes. He is also voiced by someone who is... She is just adorable.
I'm not really surprised that she is a she. It's just because the nature of hiring voice actors for children, if it's a young boy, it's almost always a girl. But, sure. I mean, she's an actress. Most actresses tend to care about their looks.
Plus, if they hired a young boy, that would be a terrible decision, because once that guy starts going through puberty, it's going to mess up a lot of things for them.
You can see this with Steven Universe right now, where his voice has just dropped, and now the actor for Steven Universe is actually having to go up into a falsetto in order to get everything working, because otherwise he's gonna sound like this. But for the rest of the show, he's supposed to be all Steven, and that just wouldn't work. So yeah, that's why they hire female actresses for young boys, so they don't have to deal with pesky puberty.
Yeah. Also, Edward is voiced by a female. I noticed it in the episode when I was watching it. I was just like, it doesn't sound like a guy. It sounds like a girl trying to imitate a guy. I look it up. Turns out he's voiced by a woman named Romy Park.
Probably is probably Romy Park is the way that I've heard it.
Romy.
See, I think that's so strange though that that you immediately recognized as a female actress, because I knew automatically just because of what I know about animation that of course it's going to be a female actress, but I totally buy that this is a 14-year-old teenager on the screen delivering those lines. It doesn't sound like a female to me.
The other thing I noticed, since this is my second time around watching this after years, Edun Scar look ridiculous in the opening. That moment where they're about to clash, their faces and their arms are just... like they're both trying to throw a curveball while also being in extreme pain.
Yeah, I think that this is a common thing throughout all of anime, is that when they want to amp up the energy of a particular moment, they will intentionally rough up the lines that define the characters. It is a strange thing seeing how good the line work is for the rest of the show. One of the things that I keep noticing about this show is just how good they are at drawing hands now. Because I just watched the original series, and it was always funny whenever I would see hands in the original series and be like, oh, they haven't figured that out yet. Nope, those aren't good thumbs. Ooh, that's nasty. But like here, like they've got hands figured out. Except for when they don't.
I almost want to call them show-offs sometimes because, they draw them so well, and I have no idea how to draw hands well at all.
It's one of the hardest things to draw. How about we talk about the episode?
Okay.
So we begin with Dr. Marcoh. Surprise, he's alive. We thought he was dead. I assumed that he was going to be dead, but yeah, he's a hostage now. Envy comes in, twirling her mustache, his mustache, he, she, its mustache, like nobody's twirled a mustache before.
Basically, not only is Envy creepy, but he is also kind of boring.
Like, there's no real reason for him to be here in terms of his character. He's not really doing anything. Functionally, in terms of the narrative, this whole scene just exists so that we can answer the biggest question that's been hovering over the show right now. I said, if not in the last episode, then the one prior, that this is around the time where the show really, in order to keep us interested, has to answer a couple really important questions, or it's going to lose us just on the sheer weight of the tension that it's built. And the biggest question of all is, what are the bad guys doing? It's a little bit hard to answer this question without the bad guys turning to the camera and going, my plan is, but they're able to pull it off fairly well by having Dr. Marcoh also be in the dark and say, what are you having me do? I think that what you're having me do is help you create a giant transmutation circle so that you can create a proper philosopher's stone. And what the show does here that is so good, it's such beautiful, wonderful storytelling. It says, you're close. You're right on the tip of the iceberg. But it's not quite that.
But still no cigar.
Which is just a great way of answering the question without actually answering the question.
Okay, my next note is Envy. They stab a knife into a steak just to show that they are aggressive. But that steak has to be pretty undercooked for blood to still be coming out of it.
I thought that was some kind of
Was it
steak
like
sauce
freshly
or something.
killed? That's some pretty red A1 sauce.
Rare steak is actually pretty bloody. That's why it's rare, is because like they haven't cooked the insides of it. Normally, the best way to have steak is just to cook the outside of it, because supposedly this is the wives' tale that I've heard, that's where the bacteria are. I don't know if that's true, but it's totally reasonable that there would be that much juice inside of it waiting to come out. It wouldn't be blood, but it would certainly look like blood because of the hemoglobin inside.
Also, at the beginning of the episode, you have the shot of the chimeras. They have these rectangles that I don't know if the episode has come up yet, but someone mentions that there are these little rectangle details that appear on everything that is transmuted. They have those things on them.
That is interesting. I didn't notice that.
I noticed that, actually. I did, actually.
I love the fact that they have included that detail. It's completely unnecessary. And in fact, like, there's only one moment in the entire show, and we'll talk about it when we get there because I have problems with that moment. But for the most part, nobody seems to notice the squares, but they exist not for the characters, but for us to understand and to have some sort of visual cue into, oh, this is what's going on. This is this alchemy thing that we keep seeing. Seeing the lines on the dogs doesn't really tell us anything that we would really need, but it does help us to see, okay, there's some alchemical stuff going on here, and it sets the scene and it sets the tone. I'm going to add in here...
It lets you know that the dogs aren't necessarily normal, beyond just being abnormal colors for dogs.
You don't really need to know that, but it helps to, like, it helps to bring you into the scene. I'm going to add one
Okay.
more thing to the uncooked steak. It's very reminiscent of the scene from Return of the King where Denethor is eating his meal and the blood starts to dribble down his chin as we cut to his soldiers all being slaughtered at Osgiliath. A very, very much a mustache twirling moment for Envy, who is so over the top in this scene. It's kind of ridiculous, but we'll talk about him more later.
Envy should get a mustache and a top hat.
From there, we move on to Central, where Wrath is walking along a corner when he hears a voice that we haven't heard before, but seems suspiciously familiar to him. Hannah, you have something about this?
Yes, I do. Well, Pride is talking to Wrath.
Pride, by the way, being the voice that Wrath immediately identifies. We assume that this is the 7th or 6th now homunculus, but we're not quite sure what he or it looks like.
As they're talking, you have it cut to a nearby spider web where you have a butterfly floating near a lamp. And then as the conversation continues, the butterfly gets caught in this spider web. Now, if you know anything about symbolism, you know that this is significant. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste the time on it.
Really? No, I don't think that's a symbol for anything. This couldn't be foreshadowing anything, could it? I don't know.
Oh, I get it. Bring people in with the promise of Philosopher's Stones in order to find sacrifice. Could that be part of the symbolism?
That might be. We'll see. Finish where you were going with this, Hannah.
One of them has more power than the other.
Yeah, that's a good theory. That's a good idea.
Yeah, or one of them is deceiving the other.
This is that is a good point. That is the obvious route. That is the route that Dylan from the past assumed we were going in. That Pride. The reason for this is that Pride obviously has more power and influence than Wrath. But oh man, once you know where this is going, it is so sweet. It is so good. Okay, so there is so much.
It is terrible in the sense that it's terrifying, and great in the sense that it is a good story.
There's a lot going on here. So, you assume that he's a spider, but actually, when you're watching the scene, there are 3 different moments of misdirection. The first misdirection that we get is the light. We see the light as we hear Pride's voice, and we assume, maybe it's the light. You know, what if a homunculus could perhaps be contained
Fire
in light?
Something?
Or maybe the fire or the light. That would be interesting. We haven't seen that before, but we don't really know what defines a homunculus yet in this show. That would be interesting. And then we see the butterfly flying around, and we assume, oh, could this be Pride? Could it be this innocent-looking creature that secretly harbors this terrible inner nature? And then we see the spider wrapping up the butterfly and devouring it, and we say, oh, I see what's going on here. Pride is the spider. He's a vicious, cruel, and uncaring creature who will turn on you in a second if he thinks that he can extract something useful from you. But here's the thing. He is all 3, and we don't even know it yet. This is a beautiful moment of foreshadowing. He is both the light, or maybe not the light. If you've seen the rest of the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He is this innocent, he's this innocent thing, but actually he's really a wolf in sheep's clothing. You think that he's this, kind and generous person, but actually isn't. And he is also the spider, willing to turn on anybody in a moment if he thinks he can extract something useful from them. You know none of this when you watch this scene. All you know is that you don't know who he is, but every single beat that he has in this story pays off.
I don't know whether we should censor what you just said or not.
We are not censoring it.
No, let's not.
Is it because you don't know? You have no idea who he is. But once you know and you see the scene again, you realize that the symbols are all there. The foreshadowing is already in place. And oh man, it is so good.
I have another note on this scene, and that is Pride talks about humans versus homunculus, and it reminded me of in Seraph of the End, you have vampires versus humans, and the vampires are constantly making this distinction between them and the humans, in which they say, oh, that is a human thing to do. Only a human would have this emotion where they want to protect everyone around them. That is a ridiculous thing. And they have it more, and it feels like they're shoving it down your throats in that. But in here, you have it much less, and I'm just like, yeah, you can mention it twice in this episode, but don't shove it down my throat. I've already dealt with that before.
The thing about lines like that is that every time they come up, it's like, is there nothing more intrinsically human than deciding that something isn't human for no really good reason? Like, every time somebody says, you're different from me, I'm superior, you're so human, and I'm so unhuman. It's like, really? I don't think so. I don't think that's why you're in this story. I think you're here to highlight a negative aspect of humanity illustrated to its extreme, not something that is intrinsically different from humanity. Else, why would you look so darn human?
Also, why would you be named freaking Wrath?
This is one of the 7 deadly sins, supposedly one of the things that leads to all humans' demise.
Wrath, pride, gluttony, so on, etc., whatever.
Now, what did you want to say about Wrath, Timothy?
So Wrath is bloodthirsty and cold-blooded because of boredom? Okay, I can buy that.
We're getting a lot of promises given to us with Wrath. Almost none of which will be paid off, by the way. Spoiler alert, almost none of the promises that we're being given about Wrath and his character right now actually go anywhere. But my favorite of them is the promise that Wrath is a family man who actually cares about his family. We'll talk about that in a bit because of another bigger thing that happens in this episode. But it's here where we get the actual promise that I think the show actually does deliver on, and maybe should have emphasized more, because it does such a good job of paying this off in the end, which is the fact that he's bored. He's looking for some excitement. He's old, and he looks at kids having fun, and he thinks, man, I wish I could get my heart rate up there and just live a little bit. He wants to live life, and that's what he wants. We don't get enough of that for when it actually does pay off. But, I mean, we'll talk about the finale when we get there. The way that this ends is after Pride calls Wrath out on his, quote, treachery, he asks him what are we going to do about gluttony? And Wrath says, oh, don't you worry, I've already got a plan right here. And we cut immediately to Riza holding a gun, ready for action. And we think, oh boy, we've got a lot of tension here because he's going to go after Riza. And then, I love this transition, then we cut to Gluttony and we remember, oh yeah, no, this is a big deal. This is a serious situation. He's the real issue right now, not Wrath. We gotta deal with this Gluttony character. It's a great way of pulling you into the scene naturally and powerfully, allowing each shot to build tension until you're finally in the present moment. Gluttony lets out his little belch explosion thingy that devours things, and we're like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
I think it's kind of like a mega slurp.
It's a
just kind of sucks everything in.
He's like a vacuum cleaner. He's like a hydrovac. Super effective. Colonel Mustang.
Call 91233 for your most efficient vacuum ever. So efficient that your entire living room will be gone by the time you're done.
And possibly also your children. Sorry!
And maybe you.
We don't have a money-back guarantee because we can't guarantee there will be anyone to give money back to. Colonel Mustang pulls out his gloves, signaling that he's got a plan. He's going to light this mother on fire because we already know that that's an effective way of dealing with homunculi. Snaps his fingers, but turns out, actually, no, this guy can swallow fire, so that's not going to work. Note that I have about here, dang, this show is so good at animating fire. So good.
Fire animation is fire!
It's possible that the only thing in existence harder to animate than hands is friggin' fire, and they do such a good job of animating fire in this show. It's I said a few episodes ago when we were talking about Lust and everything going on with her, that the biggest thing that they did to sell the fire was to just sell the details inside of the fire. But here we get these beautiful wisps that fade in and out and curve and move, and it is so good. You can practically feel the money just being ripped out of every single animator and every tear slowly plucked from their eyes.
And formed into beautiful, beautiful fire.
It's so good. All of y'all who suffered RSIs, giving us this fire, your sacrifice was well worth it. I salute you precious animators.
Yeah, and of course, while all of this crazy stuff is going on, you also have Dr. Tsundere just being a total tsundere.
Okay, explain this to us.
Basically, the mortician guy, also Dylan calls him Dr. Christopher Eccleston.
Let me explain
Because Timothy and I don't know. Is Dr. Tsundere Thunder Goddess? Who is this guy? Well, I don't know.
Tsundere.
We don't do this anime stuff.
In anime slang, a tsundere is a character that at first they're cold, but they eventually soften up, but they still kind of act cold, and that's what he does. He's in a car and he's just like, look, you guys get in right now, and I'm not picking anyone else up, because if I bother to, we're dead. And then he's just like, okay, screw it, I'm gonna be the hero here. And he does this throughout the episode where he's just like, I'm not going to do anything that risks my life. And then he does it.
His actions consistently oppose his words in every single story beat that he has, which is basically how characters are created, is by, giving them something that is something to desire, something to work towards, that is not necessarily what they're going to say they're working for, and it's so good.
Like if you have a protagonist who is young and optimistic, you put them into a cold and harsh world and force them to see reality, and then have them build up from there.
There's a reason that it works here better than it does with the other tsundere-like characters.
Tsundere.
We're going to call... we can't do that. We're going to have to call him Christopher Eccleston like we're used to, because that's who he is.
Christopher Eccleston. Or we could call him Dr. Eccleston or something.
What makes him work better than, say, Dominic several episodes ago is the fact that every single character beat that he has, or almost every single character beat, is him being the kind, caring person, even though absolutely nothing of it coming out of his mouth would suggest that he is such. He consistently plays the part of the brave hero, despite constantly sounding like he's C-3PO. Like he's the doubter. He's the guy who doesn't think that this is all worth it. But if he didn't think it was...
He's a very gruff C-3PO, I might add.
Yeah, maybe C-3PO isn't the best example. It's more of a Han Solo. If Han Solo, when he said, hey, guys, I'm leaving. I'm not going to help you fight the Death Star. I don't know why I'm in a ship right now, flying over the Death Star right now, shooting, but I'm not helping you. Just so we all know, I just fired the shot that's going to blow up the Death Star, but I'm not here to help you, guys. That's what we've got.
Oh, no, there's no way I'm risking my life for you, suckers. Next scene, why am I doing this?
And it makes for a great character, honestly, because, we buy into him more than we would Dominic, who is constantly prickly, but really only delivers 2 beats in his entire story arc that actually exhibit this inner desire to be a good person. Christopher Eccleston is complaining about having to wait for people, but people finally arrive and they're all ready to go. And then Ed decides, yeah, actually, no, I'm good. Al, Ling, and I, we're going to hang around. You guys, you go. I'm going to make up something right now that is completely implausible and makes absolutely no sense, but you go. Because we've got some narrativium to catch, gotta catch it all.
Shenanigans! Gotta catch 'em all, shenanigans!
I'm not exactly sure how they could have fixed this scene because it needs to be there, but just there's something about the way that it is presented that I just didn't buy a single note of it. It rang entirely false to me, even though I wanted it to happen. I knew that that's where it was going to go. It wasn't the best way of transitioning back into fight mode. But we do have we do have this lovely little moment when Riza hands Ed a gun, and we flash back immediately to the previous episode where we heard the line that bothered Timothy and I, your hands don't kill, and we're immediately given the question as it flashes across Ed's face, Winry's hands don't kill, but do mine?
Well, Ed kills ants, we all know that. He also eats them. So basically, he's a cannibal. Ha ha ha, small person joke.
I disowned you for a second time within the hour. Hannah, what did you have to say about this?
Yay! Double the points.
She gives a guy who can clap and then transmute things a gun. He does not need it, nor is he ever going to use the gun. Does he even know how to use that thing? Does he know how to turn the safety off? Has he ever used a gun before?
Safety? I don't know what you're talking about. I thought that all guns worked by just pushing a button and out comes the shooty things.
Also, after that, they have Ling, Ed...
That's not how they work. That's only part of how they work. That's a very small piece of how they freaking work.
Okay. Also, after that, Ling, Ed, and Al have this moment where they're just like, sure, we're kids, but we're strong. Wow, guys, that was a really young adult fiction moment right there. Is that moment where you're just like, we may be kids, but we're strong, and adults shouldn't doubt us because we can overcome the challenges they put in front of us.
This carries on a long tradition that goes back as far as the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and even going so far as the Boxcar Children, for heaven's sakes, where the adults only sort of exist to occasionally get our heroes into trouble and occasionally offer advice. But for the most part, the actions of the story are all driven by the kids because us kids can do it, right? Like kid power. Like, yeah.
But it's very pandering, very pandery to a young audience.
It is slightly pandering. I will give you that. But I mean,
Panda powers, activate! No, just kidding.
It is also an accepted part of the genre that we are dealing with. I think the problem with that character beat isn't so much that they are saying, we can do it. It's the fact that they're saying, we're kids, we can do stuff to adults. That just rings a little bit weird. Because obviously, no, as far as the adults are concerned, no, being a child does not make you more powerful than the adults. And in fact, you are not selling your case particularly well that we should leave you by pulling the child card.
I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to be a child anymore. Ah, dang.
They all say goodbye. Christopher Eccleston puts the pedal to the metal, and we have a little shot of apparently Lan Fan lying on the back seat, unable to see her young master, and she calls out his name, Ling! Ling! I don't have anything else to do right now, but I have to somehow communicate that I care about you, but I'm not going to bother doing it in a visual way, so I'm just going to say your name. Isn't that effective? No.
Lame! Lan Fan, you are a lame character right now.
I feel like when she shouted master, there was this awkward moment where I was waiting for her to say it a third time and even louder, because that's usually how it works. But I was just... But
That's
she
how it
was
works.
just done. She
Yeah.
was done.
Yeah.
And then they left.
I honestly wouldn't point this out simply because this is just a part of anime as a genre. You expect that in order to shorthand, let the audience know that you care about someone, that's how you do it, is you say their name.
Yeah.
But I just bring this up because Lan Fan has several moments in this episode where she could have increased as a character. There are several beats, and we'll talk about them as they come up, where she really could have gone places in this episode, and the opportunities are there, but the filmmakers just don't take them, or when the opportunities do come up and they sort of start to, they only go halfway there, and the result is a character who still doesn't feel real, who still isn't engaging, despite the fact that she really should be at this point.
Also, when Mustang is no longer within Gluttony's reach, he screams, and the acting right there, I love it, because it sounds just perfect. Like he is in anguish.
The voice actor for Mustang in the Japanese version is another one of my personal favorites. They're all great, but Mustang is really good. He captures that youthfulness, that slight edge of naivete, but also the maturity, which is perfect.
And Mustang also makes for a really intense character. Like, you do not want to get him angry because he freaking sets people on fire.
Yep.
So yeah.
They
Makes
gone.
for a very intimidating character.
Ed, Al, and Ling are going after Gluttony, but they're starting to have second thoughts, realizing, maybe kid power isn't going to be enough to deal with this crazy lunatic with a giant eyeball sticking out of his stomach. Nose goes. And then Envy shows up. What I love about this arrival is that it should be a, oh snap, things just got worse for our characters, but instead it turns into a total tonal shift from dire horror to lighthearted comedy.
Yeah. He doesn't call Edun this time, but he's just like, okay, you can take a breather, we're not gonna hurt you. And then Ed attacks him, and he's just like, do you know how many times you've called me a runt? Apparently Ed has a runt counter.
I love how Envy's like, no?
Like, he kept count. No, I do not know.
And it's
I
so
have no
perfect
idea.
because even though, we've got this tonal shift that's going from horror to comedy because Envy isn't there to attack them, he's there to help them, we still manage to keep things interesting because Ed's got a personal grudge that we all absolutely believe he would. He introduces this just a touch of Envy v. Edward conflict to keep the story going, despite the fact that we have now entered funny mode as opposed to scary mode. After this lovely little tonal shift, though, we cut to Salem Bradley. No, it's not Salem, Timothy. It's not Salem.
Salem's Lot.
Daniel Radcliffe.
What?
So,
Daniel Radcliffe.
So Daniel Radcliffe apparently wrote an essay about his dad, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I wrote you an essay, and I'm adorable, so you should listen to me read my essay." And Rath is like,
Totally innocent kid.
Oh my gosh, I love this essay. It's one of the key moments of the whole show. It rings with such power, even if you don't know where it's going and you don't know how it's going to pay off. in no small part because it's contrasting, as he says, a king's responsibility is to his people. Cut to, Ed and Al fighting against these two horrible monsters and to bring peace to the land. And Ling is like trying to slice up Envy and is like, oh, the juxtaposition. And it's an incredibly powerful moment for Wrath, in which we see the conflict between his role as a king and what he is actually doing. And here's my problem with the scene. Because none of that pays off. I said earlier that the only real promise about Wrath in this episode that goes anywhere is when Wrath sort of insinuates that what motivates him is the fact that he is just looking for a little bit of excitement.
Yeah, he gets some scenes, but he doesn't really do anything.
But the responsibility that he has to protect, to provide, to oversee, and to be a king has now been sold so hard, you can't go from that.
What are you laughing at?
Sorry. I found this awesome picture. It's this comic where it says Edward Cullen sparkles, but so does Major Armstrong.
Oh gosh. You ruined my note.
And put that in the show notes. I can hear you laughing in the other room.
Go ahead and add it to the freaking Go ahead. I can't believe you,
Dylan
Timothy.
Sounds like he can't wait to edit this.
I disown you, but I already know that is clearly not an effective form of... I spray you from a distance.
Trying to get me to stop being such a weirdo.
Just put up a cross and be like, the power of...
Just put the link in the comments and I'll finish what I was saying.
And then it even
the power of Miyazaki compels you.
It even has a caption that reads, "Sparkles. No one does it better than Armstrong."
I'm
sorry, Dylan.
Long story short, there's a lot of promises being made right now about Wrath that aren't going to actually go anywhere, but there's also some subtle foreshadowing going on here that if you've already seen the rest of the show, you'll already know about, but if you haven't, I can't explain right now because it will spoil the surprise. Okay, moving on. So we cut back to our trio of heroes trying to battle off Envy and Gluttony. We mentioned earlier that Envy is a mustache twirler and kind of over the top. Like, the fact that he doesn't have a mustache to twirl is honestly kind of surprising because he is just so hammy. Like, you could drizzle him in mustard and he couldn't possibly be more hammy. His saving grace.
You could drown him in mustard and there'd still be ham showing.
You could bake him in a baking dish and sprinkle a little brown sugar on top, serve him with some mayonnaise and a little bit of some nice some green bean casserole.
Anyways,
couldn't possibly be more hammy.
That is actually a great way to serve ham.
His saving grace as a character.
Okay, let's stop giving Envy recipes.
You'll be the envy of the neighborhood with this recipe.
Recipes father would adore.
We should totally make a picture that is basically of a fake book of that.
Envy's envious ham. So a long time ago in a galaxy far away, I was going to say that his saving grace as a character is the fact that he is so utterly incompetent at everything he tries to do. I'm crying. Because, like Envy, I am incompetent to keep this from falling apart.
When I decided I wanted to do this podcast with you guys, I didn't expect that we'd
I had a plan.
that Envy would be great with brown sugar.
I am sorry to everyone, to all of you.
I need to breathe.
I am ashamed.
Stop! I need to breathe.
There's a lot of this moment is so being edited out. I should listen to your rough cuts of the other podcast episodes just so I can get a feel for how painful this editing process is going to be for you.
Not since the fateful Scooby-Doo episode where we got sidetracked on references to, yes, Scooby-Doo, have I thought to myself, boy, this is going to be interesting to edit. It's going to be really interesting.
All right, I'm back.
But this one takes the cake.
I'm back.
It also takes the whole catering company.
Which, fun fact, is included in Envy's Envious Ham recipes.
Okay, my volume is up now. I've got my headphones back on, and I've been able to breathe for a few seconds.
Okay.
Let's get this going.
Okay, so a little bit after Envy shows up, she's just like, Gluttony, you can't kill these two, but you can kill that sucker. And then Ling comically runs around with Gluttony chasing him and being like, wait, I want to eat you. You know, he could have avoided this whole situation where he's running away if he just used one of the Elric brothers as a shield or clung on to Al's leg.
I agree, but I also think that the comic timing of him running away and Gluttony waddling after him is just so perfect that I kind of forgive the fact that it's a minor plot hole. It's not too bad. It's fine. But we have a separation of characters now where Envy is facing off with Ling and Ed and Al are facing off with Gluttony, who of course can't do anything, and so he's mostly just dodging them. And at this point, Envy and Ling are having a little bit of a back and forth. He's like, us homunculi are better than you humans. And Ling is like, actually, you're just like us. And I'm going to chop off your limbs one by one because I'm friggin' BA now. And I can do stuff in this show.
Then for a second, he has Ling. But then he doesn't. Envy says, oh, that's such a dirty trick. And Ling kind of takes the opportunity to do a little exposition brag where he's just like, I'm an emperor's son. I've had many attempts on my life, so I know how to stop people from killing me. What you gonna do?
And just in case you didn't know, the dirty trick was a jerk to Envy's eye.
Which we don't see.
Yeah, they didn't animate it. So without them saying it, you would have said, wait, what was the dirty trick? Him cutting off your arm?
The dirty trick was dirt. Ah.
It's a bit of a, but hark, what light yon window breaks kind of a moment where it's like, where's the light? I don't know. They say there's light. I don't see anything.
All I see is storm clouds.
Ling has Envy cornered. He has him pinned to the ground, and then Envy transforms into Lan Fan, which of course is a big deal for Ling for some reason. I don't know why, because obviously that's not Lan Fan. Like, I don't know.
It's so lame! You already know this person isn't human. What the crap?
It bothers me as an audience member. I don't buy the conflict, but I know what they're going for.
Also, this is something that has happened before. There's a scene in Bleach where you have a creature that is able to transform himself, and he transforms himself into the main character's mother, and for whatever reason, the main character just can't bring themselves to slaughter this thing that looks like his mother, even though he knows it's not.
See, I thought you were going to talk about the moment in episode 9 when Hughes is facing off against Envy and she transforms into Grazia. Yeah, absolutely. Both relevant callbacks. There's a beat here which I don't really understand when Envy has a moment of off-screen narration and he says, "Oh, so you are human." What? Like, where did that come from? Why does Envy suspect that Ling might not be human? Why do we need to have that beat? Because it doesn't go anywhere. Like it's just sort of there. And the problem with that is that like it just opens up such a massive can of worms. Like, are there other homunculi that Envy doesn't know about? Like, I don't know why this thing is there. If anybody can please explain to me, please tweet me at Dylan the Joel. No. But it drives me crazy. I don't know why. Okay. You have something that you want to say, Timothy.
And then Gluttony shows up and eats both Envy, Edward, and Ling, and some of Al's arm.
Yeah. I love the moment after this because it draws attention to Al and Ed's relationship with each other, because the first person that Al calls out to is his brother. And then when he gets up close to Gluttony, he grabs him and is just like, "Spit out my brother!" And he doesn't ask him to spit anyone else out.
Ooh. I didn't notice that.
I didn't think about that.
Also, I think Ed might be just a slight bit immortal, because before this happens, he takes a suit of armor to the face, and then a brick wall to the back of his head. There's no way he wouldn't escape this without at least a major concussion.
If we demand that all of our characters react to the actual force of impact that they have throughout every single scene in this show, they would be dead within 2 seconds. So we really can't demand that.
They'd be dead within in less than 2 scenes, yeah.
There would be internal bleeding and PTSD up the wazoo.
PTSD up the wazoo! Hooray! Also, Al loses his motivation then, and is cool, and no shades for you, Alphonse, none, because you lost your cool.
It's a crushing moment, because we know that Al's big motivation has been to restore his brother to his natural body. We know that it isn't self-preservation. Like, he's kind of in it for that, but really, he just wants his brother to get his body back. And he has lost all of his motivation. The whole reason that he has for existing has been taken away from him in a second. What drives him throughout this entire show is taken from him, and getting to see his reaction to that is chilling, because it hurts. You can hear both the hurt and the rage within him. Is a great performance on the part of Ray. Yeah, this is really good.
Ree.
Yes, Ree. It's a Japanese lady.
Screw the last name.
Delivers a really good performance in that scene. Not just the cry out of pain, but everything leading up to it is really good. You believe that this is a real human crying out in agony and frustration. After that, we cut to Christopher Eccleston's house, which is not a
believe it was a real human? No, I'm just kidding.
After that, we cut to Christopher Eccleston's house where Lan Fan is resting in his bed, and there is a convenient demonstration mirror nearby where she looks up and she sees, oh, that's my face, and that's where my arm should be. And we have this lovely little shot that rises up her torso, showing the bandages around where her arm used to be and showing her face, but it stops just short of her eyes. And that was a mistake because it robs her of an important character beat where we see her reaction, where we get to see... It seems like
they rob her of a lot of important things. It's like, this character would work if she were a freaking character.
Like, this is absolutely a moment where I think that she should be able to rise as a believable and engaging human being, but because we don't get to see her eyes, because we don't get to see the fullness of her reaction to having become a cripple, it loses its power. And it's just so frustrating. In a show with such otherwise well-defined women in Winry and in Riza and Pinako, that Lan Fan, she just keeps getting the short end of the stick.
Lan Fan does not have fun with character development.
She is also currently not having fun.
Just period. She wasn't having fun in the Autobahn. She's not having fun in the house. She's no fun for Lan Fan. We are the robots. Okay.
Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done with the notes. Come on, let's get this going.
Roy Mustang pieces out because he wants to take off and let somebody know about the fact that Fuhrer Bradley might possibly be a homunculus. What did you have to say about that?
Terrifying.
I was going to say, in the scene where Ling and Envy are fighting, you notice that when Envy falls, he goes down harder than he should, considering the appearance and how someone with that appearance should weigh. And that's going to become important.
Dylan from the past just assumed that it was loose ground. But I do like the fact that they play it just well enough that you can remember the moment, but not so hard that you automatically think, oh, this is gonna go somewhere.
But of course, if you're someone who knows what it means, you're going to see that, and it's going to be like a little treat.
He's like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what the payoff for this promise is. Here, audience. Here, have a treat. Oh, you got the treat.
Roll over.
You're so good.
Now give us some money. Give us some money, audience. Good audience.
Subscribe. Okay. On the way to Central, Roy and Riza have a little bit of how do we turn this? They flirt so hard. And it is so great.
And in the background, if you strain your ears just enough to hear it, you can hear the fandom shouting collectively, "Just kiss already!"
Love these two characters. Because, like, obviously, like, the thing is, like, what I love about their flirt... What I love about the way that these two characters flirt is that it is all subtext. There's nothing on the surface going on here other than, you did a pretty nice thing back there. And he's like, yeah, I did a pretty nice thing, but there's a reason for it, and we're moving on. But, oh, man, there's so much sexual tension going on in that car.
When she is just like, I will follow you anywhere, I'm just like, you two should kiss.
Let me guess
soon.
What all places you're going to follow him to. When Roy arrives at Central, he meets a man who we haven't seen before, but we are introduced to with the name of Raven, which is an interesting name. There's all sorts of symbolism behind a name like Raven that I'm sure won't happen to be relevant in any way come 90 seconds from now. But for now, this is just a new guy that we don't know anything about. So let's find out more about Raven. Apparently he and General Grumman, I believe is his name, are pretty good friends.
Grumman.
Maybe Grumman, yeah. They're friends apparently, maybe not good
General
friends.
Gromit?
Yes,
General
Grummet.
Gromit.
Yeah, he is yes. General Kermit the Frog.
General Kermit the Frog.
They have apparently a nice friendly rivalry, and it's a great 90 seconds that immediately endears Raven to us, in no small part because it's a comic drop. One of the key parts of a comic drop is how it lowers the status of the person involved, and as a consequence makes them more endearing and relatable. We're seeing Raven lose a little bit of status here. He loses his cool, and we immediately like him and relate to him because, you know...
I don't know if I like Raven as a person, like, at all.
Hold on, Timothy. Hold on. For the 90 seconds that we know this guy, he's a fun person. And Roy, he takes Raven, who still has a very suspicious name, who probably should not be trusted at all because his name is Raven, but whatever, he takes him down for a stroll and says, hey, you know, there are all sorts of crazy rumors going around, like the fact that, Fuhrer Bradley might be a homunculus. And Raven is like, oh, that is so funny. You're such a kidder. Why don't you come tell my friends what you just told me? Enter a room filled with generals and Fuhrer Bradley. And then Roy Mustang gets his comic drop, and it hurts.
Mustang, for a colonel, you lack a lot of tact.
It's funny how, it's not funny. A comic drop is almost always a loss of status so powerful that it elicits an uncontrollable laughter. Like, oh, it's so funny. This person just, they lost their cool and, now they're suffering a little bit for it, but we're endeared to them. And here, Roy Mustang, he has a comic drop of epic proportions that isn't humorous. It's horrifying.
Not in the sense that it's like, that it made the story worse. In fact, actually, I think makes the story better in this instance.
There's a fine line between humor and horror. They're such similar emotions in terms of storytelling. But this moment not only crosses that line, but it jumps the line and lands on the moon and then murders your firstborn child. It is so good.
What?
I'm going to try and wrap this up. So after that shocking revelation of, it wasn't just a couple people, it is the entire military is actually planning to destroy the world. Surprise! After that,
happy birthday!
Have some ham. We cut to Ed is alive, miraculously, but he's in a mysterious place, surrounded by blood. And there's a great little beat that if you blink, you'll miss it, where the camera pans and we see a jacket that looks suspiciously familiar, like it might belong to a certain priest of Lior, who we saw back in episode 3, but is now a skull. It's a great callback. It doesn't jump out at you saying, by the way, you know this person, but it does what it needs to do, which is tell you, someone was eaten and they stayed here so long that they died. That's all that we need to know. But the fact that it's Cornello is just, is good callback. Great job.
And the moment after this is beautiful because you have Mustang and you hear his thoughts and he says to himself, I'm in hell. And then you cut to Edge. They are both in hell, just different versions of it.
Ooh, I didn't notice that. That was good. This is good. Good
I
juxtaposition.
noticed that.
Awesome. So, final thoughts. Final round.
I'm good. I'm gonna go eat some food.
Hannah, anything from you?
Well, I'm going to say that for both of them, they have a different version of hell, and for Mustang, it is this situation he is in where he has to find a way to explain himself. Hell is other people. He has to figure out how he's going to get out of this situation where he's surrounded by people who are going to be a major problem for him. And then for Ed, he is in a situation where he could die. There's nothing really that can keep him alive here. The floor is covered with blood, and he has to find a way to get out, or he's going to die.
One of the things that I love about this show, in fact, maybe the thing that I love the most about it, is just how frequently it asks the question, what is the worst possible thing that could happen right now? Okay, let's do it. Let's happen. Yeah, it happens. And then the show goes about figuring out, okay, now that we're here in the worst thing that you could imagine, let's figure out what we're going to do now that we're here.
What will our characters do about it next week?
This is jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that I remember loving about the next episode is just how sort of matter-of-fact it is about, well, that just happened, now what? Which is just great from a storytelling perspective because it lets you know that the writers aren't afraid and they got your back. You're in for a roller coaster of a ride and they're not going to spare you, but more importantly, they're not going to let you down. I mean, they do sort of let you down in the end, but that not intentionally. They don't mean to let you down, and they do, they have good intentions.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off the cliff. It's okay.
I didn't realize that I was selling off so hard that Wrath was going to be a family man. I didn't, all those episodes, I just wasn't aware. I didn't know. It was a mistake. Honestly, here's some ham. Okay.
I'm going to go eat some food. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
I'll hear you later.